and he's the Chief Executive Officer at our suite. Jean-Claude, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Reg. Thank you all. I think what we're going to discuss today relates to payments technology. Africa, especially young innovators, took over in the early years of mobile payments. And they took over at the time with the likes. But unfortunately, the story has changed when it comes to who owns the intellectual property of these businesses. And now, this has presented a challenge that both challenges and opportunities that actually are the forefront of what is yet in the financial sector within the continent. With the eminent panelists today, we're going to try and discuss how best can we achieve a single digital market. I think some of you were here a couple of months ago when we signed as the African Continental Trade Area. And now we are looking with these eminent persons, how can we implement this on the digital side of things, on the financial side, and on the payment side of it. So without really going into the details of the introductions, I want to just request that we start from my immediate right. Give us your name, what you do as a business. In 1.5 minutes, you also tell us what you see as the landscape of fintech in Africa. What does it look like?
Thank you. My name is Karanveer Singh, and I in Kigali Heights, right here. We started our first project here, which is called Yego Moto. And in fact, I've completely forgotten my name because people here don't call me Karan anymore. They call me Yego Moto. So, I mean, I feel a little bad for my mother for having taken all that pain. The thing that we are trying to do here is people look at it and say that, oh, you're doing another Uber. But actually what we're doing is we're building a platform. And on that platform, we are taking an unorganized, unregulated industry and bringing regulation to it. We're also bringing in smartness in the sense that now you can tap and pay, you don't have to carry change. All the drivers are verified, we are monitoring them all the time, so we know speeding, overspeeding, driving behavior, all of that is taken care of. But the underlying thing, what is it? People look at us and say, you're a taxi platform. I say, no, we are not a taxi platform. That's a precursor. We are building on which we want everybody else to be able to plug in. So if you want to start a courier service or a delivery service, we'll have a REST API, and you can use that to be able to access it. Are we going to be limited to motorcycle taxis? I think not. But also think of one thing which could turn out to be very disruptive, and Diane, who spent a little bit of time, said a few things, but I will let her comment on it later, is that imagine the number of POS machines that exist in a country like Rwanda. We are planning to bring in 40 to 45,000 POS machines, which would be mobile. So every driver has a POS machine. Now just think of that as an infrastructure play for any startup tomorrow who wants to come and plug in and to be able to provide some kind of a service using our platform. So we are basically a platform play. For us, I'll be very clear, we are very grateful that we are here in Rwanda, but we treat Rwanda as a proof of concept. And we intend to go to other countries as well, and we look at bigger players who are there who can usher us in, whether it's a telecom operator or a big bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Let's hear your take on what the African fintech status looks like.
Thank you, Jean-Claude. My name is Diane Karusisi. I'm the CEO of Bank of Kigali Group. So we're a group of financial services. But what we did, I think, 2 years ago, was to create also a tech subsidiary. Because we believe, as some people put it, that banks are becoming more and more technology companies with a banking license. So we wanted to be disrupted from the inside and set up our own tech business. So what that tech business is doing is not really only a fintech, because it's not only looking at payments and at how to digitize the bank's business, but it's basically to create digital consumers. What we are doing is to look at value chain, national value chains, and find ways to digitize them. Then, obviously, when we have agriculture more digitized, we'll have potential customers that will interact not only with our bank business, but also with our insurance business digitally. It's our contribution to developing a digital economy. And only then, when we'll have growing digital economies on the continent, we'll be able then to integrate and have a continental digital economy. But we still need to start in our countries, to create and grow the digital economies. Thank you.
Thank you for the last two speakers, especially for sticking to time. Now, Shiko, just tell us again, plus your introduction, how are Africans doing savings, managing risk, making payments, and even accessing loans using technology?
Oh, perfect. Okay, my name is Shiko Gitao. I am head of products at Safaricom Alpha. So Safaricom Alpha is Safaricom's innovation arm. We organized around big data, product development, and partnership. To answer your questions, how people are doing this, I mean, EcoBank was talking about being able to bank the unbanked Africans. I'm proud to say that over 40%, about 47% of bank accounts in Kenya are actually virtual, and they're on mobile, which is a good thing, looking at like informal traders and how they carry out stuff. So I was looking at some data and looking at, there are women who wake up very early in the morning to go to the market, take a loan, and pay for the commodities and pay back in the evening. And if you want to know in terms of scale how much that is Safaricom processes at least 2 loans every minute on the mobile platform. So we've partnered with like the Commercial Bank of Africa on Mshwari, with KCB, on KCB M-Pesa. We have other third-party startups that are actually offering loans on our platform. And this is enabling a lot of African people actually access financing. But that is not the more than 9 out of 10 of our a long way to go, but we are getting there.
Thank you. Youth works that you're doing. She just mentioned something about women, and I was from the World Bank. For the ladies, I don't think you like it. It's that and access to such financial products. In line of what you're doing, are you having such a set aside or probably something that is customized to ensure that this is something you're addressing, especially for the ladies?
Thank you very much. My name is Guillaume Habarukira, and I'm the founder and executive director for Bridge and YouthWorks. And what we focus on is changing the way people access financing. Now, coming back to your question, the way to ensure that no one is left behind in our philosophy, we can try to put existing services that have been leaving people behind and try to put them on an app. We are not solving then the problem at the beginning. The problem at the beginning is we try to think out of the box and think broader and see what has changed. Before those services went to the app, to classical banks, we didn't have as many people connected to the internet as they are today. We didn't have the 300 million smartphone users. Those are figures of 2016. We didn't have as much women connected to the internet as it used to be. Now, that allows this new infrastructure allows us to have a distributed economy. Now, how do we create a new business model that will be present on the internet and be able to confirm transaction without having to go through a centralized place? How do we decentralize that? How do we actually move into a platform less having a centralized space which is a bank or another institution, financial institution, providing those exact services. So basically, we leave many data as we go through the internet. But those data, we can use them actually to define how each and every person is able to access finance. How does your network approves you and buys into you and helps you to one mentoring me if I'm far away and I don't have to go there? How do I access finance without incurring the cost of going to the bank? So those are things I believe if we can use that. Now coming to the women, they have their own existing network. They can virtual each other, and I think this is what we are offering with a Bridge and the Youth Works. Then again, we are building our platform on blockchain technology, so we don't want to be looking as a disruptor. With existing classical banks can even help us learn much more from them and reach much further than what they will do, because as a startup, we are very flexible. And this is our belief and our philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you, Guillaume. Now back to Ade. We all loved the music, the pomp with which your presentation was coming. I think everybody agrees. I overheard comments that this is very nice music, and probably they want to play it at the end and we dance to it. So, but away from the music, EcoBank from Ghana to Rwanda, you seem to have been there before and adapting to all the changes we are seeing in the fintech space. What are some of the key drivers are you willing to share with the rest of us here that you think will inform and drive the uptake of and the adoption of all these technological advancements we are seeking to achieve?
Okay, thank you. From our point of view, the people we serve, and please excuse me for use of the word, are poor. I'm poor. All of us here, we're poor. We have 1.3 billion people, 2.3 trillion. That's about $2,000, give or take, less, okay? So we are poor people. If we're in a way that is profitable for us and affordable for them, we have to leverage something. And we believe leveraging technology as a means of being able to deliver to them at a price point they can afford in a way that's still profitable for us is what we have to do. That's the core driver. We have millions and millions of people that need to be included, and we're trying to look for the best way to include them. And that technology becomes. Now, the next thing that we've tried to understand that if we're doing what we were doing before, but doing it on the basis of technology, we're just trying to automate a mess and get an automated mess. So we went to government. We said, listen, every account opening, about 95% of the cost of account opening is compliance. If you are able to allow us to use the ID that you have available with SIM registration, allow us to open an account, we are prepared to open that account free of charge. So we are able to leverage the social infrastructure that already exists. We understand that as a bank, we cannot think that we know everything. It is important to partner. So we open ourselves up as a platform. If you look at Apple or Android Play Store today, most of the applications that are written, the apps that are there are written by Apple or written by Google, written by other people. The store is accessible to everybody. That is why it is successful. We cannot but be a platform. Also, we cannot be fighting each other between a bank, a mobile operator, a fintech company, when there is real problem to solve. So we believe in collaboration. We sign agreement with MTN, sign agreement with Orange, sign agreement with everybody, so that collectively we can work together as players, scope of influence, do that very well, but work in partnership with every other person, whether it is government, but understand that the problem we're trying to solve is that woman that is selling fruits on the street that wants to sell the technology where she does not have a power supply, what we have to solve for. If we don't solve that, then we are just... We need to develop and deliver the technology that enable that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that makes a lot of sense. Payment platform in Rwanda. I think most of the players in the market have got one of the interventions and the issue you're trying to address, then the technology part should be the easy part. I want to come back to Diane because this seems to kind of rhyme, especially with the financial institutions, more or less in the same breath of trying to align BK is trying to do in this market and beyond. How have you been able to make sure that your internal processes, your products and solutions of the consumer?
Yeah, I think banks have always used technology, but in the past it was mainly to try make automating some processes within the bank. But I think what the fintech revolution is showing us is that we should put... that's why traditionally what banks have been able to do very successfully and very profitably was to interact with customers and of course reach only... overcharge them in some instances, and most times not really looking at the experience of the customer. So what the fintech revolution has taught us is, look, the customer a product that is appealing to the customer. It needs to be, if it's an app, if it's whatever product it is, it has to be very easily navigable by people who, most times can barely read and count. So we really need to put the customer at the center. So that's what we're doing, trying to do. And what we are saying is now let's try leveraging technology. Let's try to be more efficient and be able to charge them less. So we'll also be able to provide affordable services. But also, let's look at the experience. The customer and what's happening. They want to be able to interact with the bank at any time. They want a service that is convenient, etc. So all of this is really, teaching us banks to put the customer at the center. And it's happening. I think EcoBank is doing a great job in terms of allowing people to open express accounts, allowing people on the continent almost free of charge. And this is actually, they've set a good example that most banks now on the continent are trying to follow.
Thank you. I want to come back to Karamvir. If you can speak on behalf of your fintech peers within and beyond the borders, what have been your pain points for you to be able to, I think in a prior discussion, you had mentioned the cost of capital as probably one of the challenges that you're facing. But beyond this, what would you address, what would you list as the pain points that trying to, make it to the surface have to grapple with?
Thank you. I think there are many issues, and I'm going to try and limit it to about 4. The first thing is that we are very grateful for the fact that now we have a continent free trade area, but actually if you look at it, it's disconnected states. If you look at even the way in which tech is developed, if you look at where tech is developed, let's say that Kenya, from the way that they started by having the first hubs of development, you saw a lot of innovation starting off there. You've got a lot of other East African countries that have taken off. West Africa has a few. North Africa, there's one pocket. And again, in South Africa is a completely different country in terms of development. They look or feel more European. So you've got no access. So someone develops a fantastic app or a fantastic solution. How does he take it to market? The regulatory aspects need to be looked at. And there's something that I will leave up to Ade to bring up, which I think is a very big issue that we pre-discussed. But just think about it. If the regulatory environment is going to be completely different, imagine the cost of my having to go to every country, to having to first negotiate with each and every mobile operator to be able to get connectivity, then to tie up with a kind of a bank, then to meet the unique regulatory requirements of that particular country. So for a small startup to be able to do it, it's virtually impossible. Access to capital. Now, access to capital for startups, the first thing that you will be asked is, okay, you want 5,000, 10,000, 25,000, you can get the money. You want anything more significant than that, you're asked for collateral. Where is the startup going to come up with collateral? If you go and ask for funding, I can tell you that, okay, we have requested for interim funding, but we are looking at 18, 3% that I would get if I was to deposit money, or a 3.5%, so I'm looking at a 15% spread. I don't understand the cost of money. I'm looking at India, which is a very good parallel example. There, if I put money in a bank, I get 7.5%. If I borrow money from a bank, it's 9.5%. So how come those banks are profitable with 2%? We can talk about risk. If you look at India in the last 3 months, I think the amount of billions of dollars that have been siphoned out from banks is probably higher than what Africa has experienced. But the big difference in India is, I think what's happened is, thanks to whether we did something successful or not, we pushed through, I would say, path-breaking innovation, which has not maybe been recognized by the world at large. But what did we do? We had something called the Aadhaar, which is biometric identification. We introduced eKYC, so know your customer. So this one person has the KYC access. So basically, the KYC is taken in by a mobile operator, can be then used by a bank, or taken in by a bank, can be used by someone else. You dip into the same database, get the biometrics. So the cost of onboarding becomes much less. The second thing which they did, I think, was very intelligent, is they created something called a UPI, Unified Payment Interface. So now we all hear about the fact and we say, hey, you know, if you have WhatsApp in India, you can send money. Yes, you can. Just take anybody's number, just send him money using WhatsApp. No further apps, nothing to be done. What do they use? They use a unified payment interface. So coming back to the way that I look at the fintech industries, that they're struggling because they don't have easy access to markets. They cannot scale. They find it difficult to get funds. So I think this is a critical area that I think needs to be addressed. And if you're actually going to look at continent-wide play, then these startups need to get support of larger institutions that can give more than just provide money. Because today, for me, it would make more sense to talk to MTN and say, listen, you're in 19 countries. Can bank and say, you're in 33 countries, can I piggyback on you? They will open doors, maybe not even give me money, but usher me through the regulatory processes or introduce me to the right people. That brings a lot of value to fintech.
I couldn't agree more. I believe Ade or Diane would want to make a comment about this, but please, you feel free to come later on this. I want to just come back to Shiko. Kenya, not necessarily that you're representing Kenya anyway, but Safaricom really has made a mark in the way it has been part of, you know, enabling the unbanked populations, especially having access to these fintech and other financial services. How has the journey been, and how are you leveraging technology to reach out to these previously unbanked?
So, I mean, panel, I think Rote from Microsoft was talking about going to mobile money 3.0. And when I look back at M-Pesa, which is 11 years old, it started like putting a rail on, you know, when you want to have like a transportation network, you have to start at something, maybe dig out a road or dig out something. And M-Pesa started off like digging out a road where you could just send money home. And by just doing that one, access to these agents, now we have maybe 200,000 agents across the country. Being able to access these people, that you're able to send money home, opened up a world of opportunities. We have 90,000 merchants who are able to actually access payments through through M-Pesa. And that is just a layer-by-layer approach, more than just trying to do it all at the same time. And how do you get these layers? Is just putting your ear on the ground. We have, like, not only in our team, but in the larger Safaricom, you have to focus on the user. You have to focus on our customer. What does the customer need? So do they need their utility paid via M-Pesa? We have access to the utility companies, talk to them, find a solution that works for everybody. Do they want to access EcoBank, or do they want to access Barclays or Equity? You work with Equity to create a solution that works for the user, because when you focus with the user, the profits follow. If you focus on that one person or two people, an agricultural farmer or somebody, then that brings in the larger scalability question that everybody is always seeking out for. So again, it is about rail, then building all these platforms. And you know what has been something we discussed earlier is, how do you open up Africa to the larger, to make it a truly digital marketplace? And M-Pesa, being one of the many mobile money solutions in Africa, have done that. I mean, I was thinking, like, I have relatives who live in Malawi, and they just cross the border into Tanzania because you have interoperability with Tanzania, and you send money to them, and they go back to Malawi with money. And you think that is, like, pretty cool. And those are the things that we need to encourage within our ecosystem, in opening up, like, things like M-Pesa, opening up that interoperability across the continent, such that international money transfer is no longer an international play, but a local play. We can connect with the global lenders. I mean, there's no problem with partner. I think partnership is the way to go. I mean, a few weeks ago, I'm not sure when, I think 3-4 weeks ago, we partnered with PayPal to ensure that you can actually access M-Pesa using PayPal and vice versa. That opens up another world of possibility. Now you can trade with people from anywhere in the globe using your M-Pesa account. Again, it is about layering, listening to the user, and just actioning and executing on the user's need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guillaume, I just want to come back to you. I think in line of your duty, you're trying to work with the youth, be part of this whole fintech revolution. I need to understand from your experience, what have been some of the challenges? Innovation hubs, working with local developers to come up with solutions, because we stop depending on foreign procured platforms that make the cost of transacting very expensive. But what have been able to support within this fintech revolution?
Okay. Thank you, Gaga, for the question. It allows me to address two elephants in this room. I think we can talk around this, but if we take with the first one is how can we help create a single digital market, and why is it important? I want to address this. And the second one, I believe that as many Africans opposed to a credit interest rate of above 14%, up to 18%, in some countries, 20%. So that cost of credit without even making, accounting your profit. So it means you have to have a return on investment of 30% so that you can pay, that, right? Allow me to make, if I come to the first question, how can fintech help address the challenges we are meeting in order to help create this single digital market? Opening up the borders is one thing, but after the border have been opened, what happens if people don't speak the same language? What happens if it's not the same? So opening the border alone doesn't solve things. And again, that brings me to the second point. If there were me using that car in those same countries, because this is a single market once, you want to be doing things, to be opening up and be able to do things in a different market you were not accessing before. So the cost of me, for me to drive, and someone who can drive in those of transactions is going to be higher. So what if we could create standards? The same way you access finance here in Rwanda, it's going to be the conditions to make this single digital market happen. Now, if we can do that profitably, we don't need the government to intervene to that. Actually, we are saying, get out of our business. The single digital market, the single market actually has been already allowed by banks like EcoBanks, like anyone trying wherever you go. That's the question. That's the first thing we are trying to address. Youth works where we want to be able to give a solution that will be repeated. I give an analogy to Amazon. The reason why Amazon has been successful, primary, is because the way a product is ordered, in the way a product is shipped, and the way a product is taken back. Before that, you had many e-shops, and you still have some of them. But when you look at their growth rate, Amazon is way above, because every time you go through the user experience of Amazon, you are going to expect always the same thing. Standards in the way people will access finance is going to help even more and accelerate a single digital market. Now,